Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and the products that are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet with 9 billion people, how are we going to be able to provide the food, the fuel, the fiber, and all the basic infrastructure that's needed? And particularly when we're looking at the African continent, 54 nations, very diverse, and at the same time having challenges as far as water is concerned, but yet rich mineral resources throughout the entire continent, rapid economic development and growth. And we have a gentleman sitting with me that's actually in the middle of all this, making things happen on the African continent. This is Ambassador Retired Robert, and he goes by Bob C. Perry. He's the Vice President of the Corporate Council on Africa. And Bob, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Dr. Hancock, thank you very much.
Glad to have you here with you. And as I was telling you, you're really doing great work over at the Corporate Council, and we're really pleased to have you. But tell us, what is the Corporate Council on Africa?
Sure. The Corporate Council on Africa is a membership organization promoting trade and investment between the U.S. and Africa. We have about 185 members, about 20% are African-based companies. And that's important because when anyone doing business, it's about establishing relationships, and it certainly helps to enter a market if someone in your organization is a key player in that market, whether you're talking about trade or investment. So that's the value we bring, creating the network where people can do business together.
So looking at the mission that you have at the Corporate Council on Africa, how do you bring about the trade, the communications, the investments, and also the transfer of green technologies to all 54 nations on the continent?
We conduct conferences as well as trade missions. The trade missions take companies from the United States, but also it can include companies from Africa to another African country. We provide them access in talking with government officials to understand policy and investment incentives and introduce them to local business people that they can do business with. And then our conferences bring together anywhere from 200, maybe up to 1,500 people to talk about different topics around economic growth and the investment opportunities and the networking that goes along with that. That's all what it's about, getting to understand markets and meeting the right people to do business.
Yeah, looking at the trends, what do you see on the continent as far as the economic development opportunities there, and also the trends that you've seen, say, over the last 5 or 10 years and proceeding as we're going forward the next 5 or 10 years?
I think the major trend is urbanization. Africa has more cities with over 1 million people than does North America. That's a hard concept for most Americans to understand, but it's true. And that increased urbanization is going to be the key to the emerging middle class. People move to the city to find jobs, so you have increasing numbers of cities with over 5 million people. And so the opportunities there are for housing development, electrical development, water and sanitation systems, all of that goes into making a modern metropolis. The money is there. There are African businessmen there looking for partners from the U.S.
Yeah, looking at that too, as far as the trends, you were talking about this urbanization. As you know, it's going to over 1 billion people on the African continent. And they're saying by 2050, it'll be almost 80% of the population of Africa will be in urban areas.
Right.
And so when you have that great amount of urbanization, the almost mass migration out of the rural areas, that is a tremendous change as far as the infrastructure that's needed, and also providing the food, the fuel, the fiber we talked about earlier. And so how do you combine all of that, and what do you see as the opportunities through the Corporate Council in order to meet those emerging but very dynamic and diverse needs that in probably the last 100 years haven't really been there.
Sure. Let me just mention one country, Nigeria. A population of 180 million, 80 million of those are urbanized, and the rest will follow in the coming 30 years. Lagos is a city of about 20 million. You can imagine it makes New York City sort of second place. But you see the opportunities for the housing. There's a housing deficit in Nigeria of 19 million. That's an opportunity for builders to go in and partner with local people to meet that pent-up demand. So the opportunity to make money from both the American side as well as the African side is limitless.
And I feel your enthusiasm as you're sitting right here beside me in the station. So this is absolutely fantastic. And I'm just going to go through a couple of these slides that we have here. This is just incredible what is actually going on. And this really speaks to the heart of what we were talking about, Bob, this shot right here, as far as the vast urbanization. And as you know, there are some of these cities that spread over 3 countries.
That's right.
3 countries. And that's, in West Africa. That boggles the mind. Going back to this, let's just take this a little step further as far as these growing opportunities on the African continent, 54 nations. Mostly growing together, but there's some regional conflicts that are slowing some growth, but that seems to hopefully to be resolved. What do you see as far as the targeted areas that your members should think about, but not just with the corporate council, but all of America and relationship, collaboration with the countries in Africa?
I think you go in, you want to look for places where there's fairly good governance, so that everyone understands the rules of the game and that you can project out 5, 10, 15 years to know that your investment is going to be secure. And you look also for business partners that you can work with and understanding what the needs are and that you can provide it on a competitive basis. I was talking with the Deputy Chief of Mission from the Embassy of Zambia here in Washington, and he was talking about the water supplies in Zambia. He says Zambia has 40% of the water in Southern Africa, and that means that
that's in one country, 40%.
40%.
Oh my, incredible.
And so if you want to do farming, that's the place to go. And we're going to take a trade mission there at the end of May to introduce some American companies to that market so that they can understand it, not just read it in books, understand what's there, meet the people they need to work with. One of our companies, AGCO, which makes tractors as well as having grain storage facilities, they are starting a pilot farm to introduce modern agricultural technologies there, taking advantage of the rich land and a ready supply of water. So that's the type of things we do with our member companies.
Well, looking at the American companies, you're talking about that, and of course we're focused here, even though this is a global broadcast. But at the same time, what do American companies need to be thinking about and consider vis-a-vis what's going on in Africa and how they can leverage that? Because my understanding is that many American companies are not realizing the potential because they're just hesitating and not really moving forward, as many other countries around the globe are doing.
The United States is a large and very profitable market for American companies, and unfortunately many of them don't take the initiative to go into Africa. For those that do, there is support from the U.S. from various U.S. government agencies. The U.S. Trade and Development Agency can help them with feasibility studies. They have, in particular, which should interest you, a green initiative to focus on green energy. And so they can help the companies doing this, feasibility studies and grant funding to cut some of the risk to go into those markets. The Overseas Private Investment Corporation will help also with loan guarantees and direct loans, as well as political risk insurance. They also support a range of private equity companies that provide investment funds to do development in Africa. And of course, the U.S. Export-Import Bank will give loan guarantees to take some of the risk out of doing business in an unknown market. So the support is there for the businessmen that want to move in and not get left behind.
And also the ladies, too.
That's right.
Because there's a number of women that are actually becoming very involved in the African continent. And as you know, in many of these countries, the women really are the backbone of particularly small to medium scale enterprises. And that's something that you actually see in this photograph right here. Looking at your background as ambassador and now going over to the corporate Council of Africa, how does that really help you as far as leveraging the resources of all of the United States in introducing companies, but also the government agencies that could work with those companies on the continent?
I think I've been fortunate to have the understanding of how different agencies of the U.S. government operate and what their criteria are, as well as to develop the relationships with leaders in Africa, understand what their development goals are, where the openings are, what their expectations are from the U.S. relative to other countries that entering their markets. And I think you get here to an issue of competitive advantage. Certainly the U.S. has it on technology, but we find it difficult meeting price points and sometimes financing that other countries entering the market, particularly from Asia, bring in to support their business people.
Looking at on the other side of that, the African companies and African governments, what do you see as far as their role, their responsibility, and also the opportunities they can realize if they become much more aggressive vis-a-vis the American market?
Okay, I think the key role for the African governments is to declare standards for investment and economic development. Contract sanctity, I think, is important both for nationals of their own country, as well as for foreigners going in. And then it's up to the business people themselves to assess what the opportunities are, calculate their risk, understand how they can spread that risk either with other business partners or through various insurance programs, and then just go in and start doing business. The housing opportunities are great. Hotels are another opportunity. The power sector, whether it's grid power or distributed power, there are great opportunities there.
Well, looking at the Corporate Council in Africa, what do you see, Bob, for the next 5, 10, and 15 years as far as the growth, the opportunities for your organization, and being, in essence, a platform, a springboard onto the African continent?
I think we will continue to grow in terms of the members. We have both large and small, more African companies coming in, more entrepreneurs, both from the U.S. side as well as the African side. I had the good fortune to work with some folks from the President's Young African Leaders Initiative last year, and to understand the vitality that these young folks bring to ideas, their understanding of their own markets, and applying what they learn from us.
This is Ambassador Robert Bob C. Perry, the Vice President, Corporate Council in Africa. Thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet. Good job.
Okay.
I tell you, none of you will stay right there.
Okay.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me.
There's more than just books at the library.
Il y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Hello. You have a lot of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is just a phone call away. 1-800-RUNAWAY.
To the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, and welcome again to the Emerald Planet of Washington, D.C. We're coming to you on a week-to-week basis, looking at 144 different nations for those 1,000 best practices that are making a difference as we move towards 2050. And by 2050, we'll be adding about 2 billion new people to the planet. Many of those are going to be on the African continent, joining the citizens that are now about 850 plus or minus million, and among the 54 different nations there. And we have a gentleman that's going to come in and talk about how we're going to be able to provide the food and the fiber and also the fuel, looking at converting some of that grain into ethanol and other types of natural fuels. This gentleman is Philippe Villers. He is the president of GrainPro, Inc., and he's coming in by Skype from Massachusetts. And sitting right beside me is Ambassador Robert C. Perry. That's the Vice President of the Corporate Council on Africa. And I understand that actually Philip's going to be coming in by telephone. Philip, are you with us?
I am indeed. Happy to be with you, Sam.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and I think we have your photograph to show everybody what a handsome young man you are. And I have another one sitting right beside me with Ambassador Perry, so we're going to have a great time together. But anyway, welcome to the Emerald Planet, and thank you for talking about this very innovative company you have, GrainPro. Tell us a little bit about GrainPro and also your duties there.
Well, we take GrainPro in Concord, Massachusetts. We take great pride in being a not only for-profit company. We work in 107 countries helping to fight world hunger and providing more income to small farmers, particularly in Africa. And we do this with a unique patented technology which is called hermetic or airtight storage, and delighted to tell you about it.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and if we can bring up these slides, we have a number of slides so people can see, and also I think we have a video. If we can bring up the video, and let's play that for everyone, and they'll give our audience a great background and overview as far as what it is that you're doing. Let's see if we can bring that up, Philip.
tecnología de GrainPro surgió hace más de 25 años en el mundo por parte de científicos estadounidenses e israelitas, quienes buscaban la forma cómo reducir las pérdidas post cosecha. Tomaron en base la tecnología ancestral de los egipcios, quienes almacenaban en sus vasijas pequeñas semillas y granos y las enterraban en el suelo, y lo que hacían ahí era que apartaban totalmente, aislaban los granos de la atmósfera exterior. Ese mismo concepto se tomó en este caso y con el desarrollo de la tecnología que tenemos hoy en día para crear esas membranas especiales y poder proteger nuestros granos. El principio se basa en la creación de una atmósfera modificada, lo cual significa que se aísla totalmente del ambiente exterior, los niveles de oxígeno disminuyen, lo cual crea una asfixia natural para insectos y detiene la propagación de los hongos y los mohos que pueden afectar la calidad de nuestro grano y que no nos permitiría poder comercializarlo a un mejor precio. pensamos específicamente para diversas operaciones, de transporte hasta almacenamiento. Los cucunes, que es el equipo más popular en GrainPro, están específicamente diseñados para el almacenamiento, ya sean interiores o exteriores, para proteger el grano por periodos prolongados de hasta 6 o 9 meses. También tenemos las superbolsas, que son de capacidad de 150 libras, que son individuales y podemos transportarlas y tenerlas en almacenamiento en bodega. Otro de los equipos muy funcionales son los Transafe Liners, que son los liners especiales multilaminados con barrera antigases, que es una tecnología patentada para proteger el grano dentro del contenedor y que las capacidades son de 20 o de 40 pies.
Tomando en cuenta que la producción de granos no es permanente, como sí lo es el consumo de los mismos, el almacenamiento es importante, ya que esto le permitirá poder consumir sus alimentos según sus necesidades. Y en muchos de los casos, por ejemplo...
Philip, I tell you, that gentleman there is, that was about the fastest talker I've ever seen, but it's some excellent information, great images, and thank you for sharing that video with us. But what are some of the major challenges as far as food production, this idea as far as farm to fork, and making sure that we're not wasting some 30–40% of all the food that's produced currently on the planet?
Well, we emphasize our work in hot, humid climates, which is much of the developing world. The losses on major grains, corn, wheat, rice, beans, often exceeds 25%. And yet our technology, which we pioneered, can reduce this to less than 1% per year. Without pesticides, without using up energy, it's a very simple idea. The insects do the work for us. They use up the available oxygen, create an unbreathable atmosphere, and they all die. Very simple. It works. Our airtight containers are 500 times more airtight than normal plastics, which helps a lot. And we store anything from 50 pounds to 1,000 tons. Different models, of course.
That's absolutely incredible, and we're showing some of these images here since you're on the phone and not coming in by Skype. But as you know, we have Ambassador Bob sitting right beside me, and he's going to go ahead and ask the next question. Bob?
Yeah, Phil, I remember we met about 4 years ago when you first were joining the Corporate Council on Africa. I just wonder, how have you been able to enter markets in Africa? Where have you been successful? And what do you see for the future?
A lot of good questions. We're now in 28 African countries, but in places like Rwanda and Kenya, we've grown very significantly. In other countries, we've just got a toehold. And our dream is, if we could reduce losses in Africa by safe storage and drying, we do both, then Africa would already be self-sufficient in grains, which is not at all the case because of enormous and preventable losses. And this simple, unique technology can make a big difference when it is used on a wide enough scale to make a difference in the country. It also can improve the lives of small farmers and their income because it allows them to store until prices are more attractive and then sell without finding out that the insects and the molds have stolen their profit.
And also, too, Philip, is the fact of taking some of that grain and the beans off the market. Instead of having a flood and depressing the prices, they can actually get the full world market value. I think that's very important. When was your ultra hermetic storage invention created, and why is it so important?
We've been at it since 1992, but the ultra hermetic portable system we invented about 10 years ago, and in fact it's patented, and it means that we can store for a year a whole range of things, including, by the way, something that consumers in this country use widely, which is coffee and cocoa, which between production and consumption, there's a big time gap. That's where we come in. And it's particularly important nowadays where climate change is already affecting African production, and they really can't afford to waste a large part of it, such as 25% or more.
Well, I tell you, no one can really afford that, and understand that actually the world right now could possibly feed well over 12 or 13 billion people if we weren't wasting so much of that grain. But even though you've touched on this in several of the questions already, Phil, just kind of be very succinct. What makes your airtight, pesticide-free storage so different than other types of storage?
Normal storage, because it's not airtight, means the insects have a field day, and the molds which create cancer-producing aflatoxins in hot, humid climates are many times the international permissible level, which of course has a tremendous public health effect. With hermetic storage, molds can't grow and insects die, and that 500 times more airtight than normal plastics is what makes the big difference. That's our contribution.
That is really an incredible difference, and thank you for sharing that. Bob, next question, please.
Sure. Where are your products? You mentioned Kenya and Rwanda. Where else are your products used in Africa or in other countries around the world?
I don't think we have time to get the full list because it's 107 countries.
What would be some of your major markets?
Major markets are corn and rice, obviously particularly in Asia, but also high-value commodities which provide cash crops such as coffee and cocoa. The largest user of our products for cocoa is the Ghanaian Cocoa Board, which is the second largest supplier of cocoa in the world. Do you like your chocolate?
Well, we like the chocolate, and I think you're talking about the coffee as well.
Yes, we're very big in coffee because people somehow like their good coffee and their excellent coffee to remain that way, and that's exactly what we're able to do for periods up to a year.
Philip, we have about 20 seconds left. What do you see for the growth of GrainPro Inc. over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And please be quick.
The sky's the limit, and we're going to make a difference in people's lives, particularly in developing countries. That's our goal.
Well, you did that very efficiently, and thank you for coming in by telephone, and thank you for being with us. This is Philip Villers, who is the president of GrainPro Inc., and sitting right here beside me in the studio is Ambassador Robert Bob C. Perry, the Vice President of the Corporate Council on Africa. And thank you for being with us as we're going out and looking at these various areas around the globe that are using these GrainPro technologies, something that's helping to protect the grain as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Thanks.
Good job.
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged. Where teachers have more time to teach. And students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming. Right to your neighborhood. And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has the drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. as we're looking around the globe for those 1,000 best practices, as we call it, the best of the best. As we're looking at the African continent, it's going to 1 billion people possibly by 2020 and many more than that by 2050, is how we're going to be able to provide all the basic infrastructure. And one of the things is that already almost half of the population, almost 500 million people, could use a new and more substantial housing. And so we have someone sitting right beside me that's determined they're going to have their fair share of all this new housing on the African continent. They were on about 2 years ago or so. This is called the International Green Structures, LLC, and Marjorie Cota is the Chief Marketing Officer for this organization. And Marjorie, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on today.
Well, looking at what you're doing, I'm going to skip right over. This is one of the houses that you're actually building on the African continent, 54 countries, going up to 1 billion people. Mm-hmm. But tell us a little bit about the international green structures, and then we'll talk about actually what you're doing.
Okay, great. Well, IGS is actually headquartered in Stevensville, Maryland. In 2005, we were actually founded to work on disaster relief housing here in the United States. We were quite successful and gained several U.S. government contracts. However, in 2012, Rick Keena, our president and CEO, realized that there was a much greater need on a global basis. So he rebranded the company, we set a new course, and now we're working on developing new innovative structures and solutions for the emerging markets.
And what we're going to do is we're going to share right now a video, Marjorie, that you provided for us. And this is going to be fast-paced because you're going to build a house in about 2 minutes. So I think they're going to be queuing that up. But anyway, tell us a little bit about this new rebranding and restructuring while we're waiting for the video.
Sure.
Just why move forward at this time, for this particular market?
Well, it's interesting. There's approximately 827 people living in urban slums in the global market. There's over
827 million.
Millions,
yes.
Yeah, million. And 50 million IDPs, which are internally displaced people, and refugees also living in those slums. The number is set to grow, as you've already said, to 1 billion by 2020. So we knew that we needed to come to the marketplace with a full solution and be a real provider of both the manufacturing, the service, as well as the solution. And we came up with what's known as our IG structures.
This is something, and we're going to put the video up here in just a minute, but the whole thing about this, particularly American companies, they want to sell a product, but they don't really think about the aftermarket, the spare parts, the basic infrastructures needed to get all that there. And so let's put the video up. We'll look at some of these structures, and then we're going to move forward and talk more with Marjorie Cota.
Great.
That is incredible.
Thank you.
What a story, Marjorie.
Yeah,
that's just really nice. Now tell us a little bit about these special materials that we've seen cars sitting on and dropping steel pieces and going up in 2 days.
Well, it's a really amazing manufacturing process, and it really starts in the field with the farmers. We actually take the straw that's left over after the harvest of rice and wheat, and we recycle that in our manufacturing process to once it's dried and cured. During that process, we actually shake out any of the impurities that might have been picked up during the recycling process, and then the straw is subjected to extreme heat and pressure. Now this actually activates a lignin substance in the straw, which is there normally, and that becomes the actual binding agent for the actual panels. Once they're compressed, they're cooled, and a water-resistant organic paper is actually put on top, and then it's cut into the project size length that we need for our structures.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, is this something that was invented through your company, or you're collaborating on this particular material, and is it available anywhere else on the African continent except for your own company?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, the technology's been around since 1940. Originally,
1940?
Yeah, 1940, and there are many structures actually built in England with this process. Westminster Abbey actually has it in its roof structure. So the product's been around. What's unique about us, when we pair it with our pre-engineered framing system, we're actually able to create a number of dynamic, innovative structures that we call the IG structures for houses, schools, and healthcare facilities. So this really is an opportunity for construction companies, because we're not the builder, and we don't claim to be. We want to be able to train those individuals to go out after they buy our product and make those structures in country.
So looking at this type of material, what you're saying is this is really something in essence was a waste before.
Yes.
Now it's coming into a very viable commercial product. Mm-hmm. So what makes this attractive as far as your export activities going on the African continent?
Yeah, well, because we're not the builder, we're actually providing the recycled materials for builders to build with, and because the quality of the product is actually built into the manufacturing facility and that process, we're actually giving them an opportunity to build something that isn't available to them today. Traditionally, most of the areas in Africa are still building with the block and cement. And due to the overwhelming need, the 827 million people we talked about earlier, the quality of the cement isn't normally there because the demand is so high. So you're really not sure where they're getting their blocks from. And in this process, the time that they use for block and cement also takes a long time. And as you saw with our IGS structures, we're actually able to build a structure under 2 days once the product is actually delivered to the construction site.
Let's stop right there. We talked about, and what we saw there were people from the local communities are actually building that structure. How long does it take to actually train them and get them involved? And if you're putting up one structure within 2 days, it's assumed that you could have in a community maybe 3 or 4 of these teams working simultaneously.
Absolutely, Dr. Sam. You jumped to the best conclusion you could have. We train all of the construction companies that we're working with prior to them actually going out on the site to build. This takes a couple of weeks. As you saw, many people can actually learn how to build them, and the youths were the ones who built the projects in Kenya, and they had no formal training at all before they did, and you saw the great quality and the finishing that they did. So it's really the trades that we're giving back to the country, the technology transfer that we're giving back to the country, but we're willing and able to train them on very simple processes.
Well, the whole thing about the way you're making this, it's pre-cut, pre-designed. It comes in a panel type layout. So it does make it easy to do that, but at the same time you really are transferring new technologies and new skills into those communities. So looking at the youth that were here, what do you project could be the life of that, and how can they grow as far as the company is concerned as you expand on the African continent through all 54 countries?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a number of opportunities that are currently going on, specifically the build in Kenya, and we have a new project that's going on in Nigeria that we're really excited about. And specifically, you know, these companies that will buy the IG structures, the products and materials to put up the houses, will be able to learn a much better way of manufacturing and building a mass structure. So for a build of 500 homes, they'll be able to work on that and get trains built at the foundations, actually putting up the cap and steel, actually doing the exterior finish, as well as then the interior finishing. So we're really excited about that. More importantly, we're so excited about the overwhelming response from the developers and the builders in Kenya that we're actually building a IGS structure manufacturing facility out in Thika, Kenya. So we have our very first on the continent manufacturing facility that will be finished by the second quarter of this year and up and operational by third quarter of this year.
This is incredible. So Maryland's taking over the African continent. Is that what you're telling us?
We would like to think so. Even exciting on top of that, the Nigeria project that we have is actually located on the land of the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II. And he recently came to the United States his first time as an official king and toured our manufacturing facility. And he and his esteemed delegation came then to Washington, where we had meetings with US Exim Bank, talking about the project, as well as he's considering putting an IGS manufacturing facility in Kano.
That's absolutely fantastic. We just about run out of time. You know how fast it goes
yes,
on Emerald Planet TV. What do you see for the growth of your organization, say, over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, we are very excited about the growth and the opportunity that we have, Dr. Sam. We are planning on having at least 10 IGS manufacturing facilities worldwide by 2020. And we do believe that with all the overwhelming interest that we have from Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, that we'll be meeting that need while we put up our international green structures.
I think this is absolutely fantastic. Marjorie Cota is Chief Marketing Officer for the International Green Structures. This is fantastic about this housing in Africa as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet. Nicely done.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org. or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States as we're looking around the globe in 144 different nations. We're going to a planet that's going to have some 9 billion souls by 2050, and so we need to seriously consider how we're going to provide the food, the fuel, the fiber for all of these people. And so that's why we're looking for what we call the best of the best technology, services, products, people, and the processes. And we have a gentleman who's very engaged as far as what's going on to provide the food aspects and also some of the fuel and the fiber. This is Vroom. He is the president and CEO of what's called CropLife America. A very interesting organization. It's really an association, even though we're calling it an organization. And Jay, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Great to be here.
Glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about CropLife America, and also sometimes people call it CropLife USA.
Yes. Well, so thank you very much for the opportunity to join you and to have a bit of a dialogue about the wonderful opportunities that are ahead of all of us to develop agriculture everywhere on the planet, to make agriculture and farmers more productive, and to ensure that the environmental footprint that farmers leave behind is improving with every turn and opportunity. Our trade association represents about 100 member companies, and most of our companies are multinational, with many of them having a business interest in developing markets in Africa and the Middle East. So we work closely with a companion organization, CropLife Africa Middle East, and I've had the opportunity to work on some projects with them, to engage together with my colleagues in that region, but also from around the world, looking for development opportunities and also ways to simultaneously ensure that the technologies that our companies bring to the marketplace for the control of pests and the betterment of crops through biotechnologies and crop protection chemistries are able to be stewarded in the best possible way to ensure safety.
Yeah, looking at this image here, you know, as far as the honeybees are concerned, this is one of the things that's great concern, because this is a major pollinator, as well as the monarch butterfly and many others. And so my understanding is that's why your association is there, so that you look at, you know, all the chemicals are going on out there, it's being used in agriculture.
Right.
So you're trying to protect the planet, the people, the water and the soil and the air all at the same time, as well as the insects that are needed to do this. That's a really tall order, Jay. So how do you do all of that?
Right. So, you know, a lot of people are acquainted with modern pharmaceuticals. We depend on pharmaceuticals, both prescription and over-the-counter, to protect our health. So crop protection chemicals and biotechnology for farmers really are the same kinds of products to help farmers protect their crops and ensure that we can have safe and abundant crops for all of us to eat. But at the same time, we want to make sure that that impact on the environment is acceptable, if not even beneficial, to the outcomes that we all want for, you know, a healthy planet, healthy water, healthy air.
Yeah, yeah. Looking at this this manufacture distribution as far as crop protection chemicals and the plant sciences, looking at these various members and companies that you're working with, how do you determine what is the best practices as far as putting this out to the public, providing it to the agricultural industry, and making sure that what is said about the chemicals and this activity really is what's going on?
Well, it's a tall order, as you've already said, and the most important thing that we have as an industry is science-based regulation. And most of that has to happen at the individual country or even more localized government level. So we need to have strong laws at the national level in every country where our products are used. And in every instance, our preference is that our products would have to be licensed by that federal government and then reviewed on a periodic basis, so that those governments can say to their citizens, these products are safe, they have the proper stewardship from the industry and training for farmers, so that the products are being used in a manner that is safe as well as productive. It's really one of our problems and challenges in Africa because governments haven't had the resources dedicated to have scientists on staff and access to consultants for themselves to be able to do this kind of regulatory work. So we've been engaged a lot with regard to capacity development for nations, particularly on the African continent, to ensure that they have the regulatory abilities to be able to look at our products, to regulate them, and to ensure the public that everything that's going on is appropriate. We do have problems around the world with counterfeit goods. People that make fake pesticides and mislabel seed and claim that it is something perhaps that it is not. And for farmers that have to trust their suppliers, this can be a problem. It's another place where our industry has worked, especially in Africa, to ensure with development authorities that are out there from the European governments and the Western governments such as Australia and the United States, that we're helping to provide education for government officials to be better regulators, but also for people out in the field to actually know how to use the technologies that we're providing and to be able to tell an authentic product from a fake or counterfeit product.
Yeah, this whole thing about the CropLife America, CropLife Africa we've talked about, but also you have CropLife the Middle East.
Yes.
And many people are now becoming more aware that the African continent, 54 countries, is very dynamic.
Yes.
The growth rate as far as the economies actually is some of the highest in the world at this time. What's going on in the Middle East? You know, we think about, you know, oil, natural gas,
yes,
not much else. But there's actually a lot going on there in these countries.
Absolutely.
As far as agricultural production,
right,
water, and all these other things. What's going on there, Jay?
So really fascinating. We support and participate with an organization called the World Food Prize. It was founded by Dr. Norman Borlaug, who received the Nobel Peace Prize for feeding people in 1970. And the World Food Prize actually brings together people that focus on advancing technology and innovation. And last year, they recognized one of the pioneers in ultra-conservative water irrigation systems, a gentleman from Israel that has pioneered great efficiency concepts that have been practiced throughout now the Middle East in Jewish and Arabic countries alike. And it's one of those things that goes to show that the world can be leveled by way of outreach, and that differences over religion or cultural beliefs can be really leveled out when people want to get after doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So irrigation is one of those secrets that is part of the equation, and we need to be smarter about the way we use water in agriculture.
Yeah, and actually we've had that very gentleman on this program. He's the father of drip irrigation.
Yes.
And so actually we're introducing his technologies into Latin America as well as some countries on the African continent, literally as we speak. So it's amazing how small the world really is, and how everybody is really connected. But looking at the 60 plus companies that you have, how does your organization turn to help them? Now some of these are multi-billion-dollar companies. They're in some ways almost monopolies in the world marketplace as far as, you know, delivery of grains and other things. But at the same time, your organization really does help them. And so how does that service get back to these companies and then in turn goes to the farmer and the consuming public?
Well, to your point, our companies are some of them very large, other companies not so large. We even have some family-owned businesses in our industry and in our association. But even those family-owned businesses are doing business across many countries around the planet and are truly multinationals in their own right. So what we do is bring those companies together to help them focus on what are the common interests of the industry in helping farmers and helping governments help farmers, so that, again, all these technologies can come together in the best possible way for the best possible productivity outcomes. So one of those things would be going back to problems that we have, like counterfeit goods coming from people that don't have the best interests of farmers at heart. We're working with governments to help them get better educated, for their customs authorities to look for fake goods coming into their countries and to catch them if they're already there. Educating farmers on best practices on how to apply our products. We've also worked with the World Cocoa Federation in developing a system in the 4 major cocoa producing countries in Africa for actual licensed professional spray service providers. So our affiliate in Africa has done a lot of great work alongside of the cocoa industry that, by the way, in Africa is supplying 70% of the world's cocoa. So we all care about this, whether we knew about it or not, because we're so dependent on those 4 countries in Western Africa for our cocoa supply.
So the 30-plus countries that are members of this CropLife Africa, CropLife Middle East really then depend on you, because you're really trying to help moderate a third-party provider that may be providing counterfeit or not goods that really is the best interest as far as the soil, the air, the water, and the humans are going to be consuming that. So how do you be that interface between these countries, maybe weak structures, and these third-party providers that really are not maybe doing all they can do to benefit the earth?
It's not just one of us. It's certainly not us here in the United States. It's a collaboration of European companies that are members of ours here in the United States, American companies, Asian companies coming together to really advance in a common platform this commitment to stewardship, commitment to innovation. Protection of intellectual property is very important for companies to be able to invest the $200, $300, $400 million in a new product that will take a 10-year period from discovery to get to the first day in marketplace. All of these things are common platforms, and so you're right. We're proud that we've got some very good national associations in countries across Africa that are working under the umbrella of our regional organization on the continent. And I think that we've got a great track record, but lots more work to be done because of the growth of population, the demand for better diets by that growing population, and the expectation of protection of public health. One of our companies manufactures bed nets that have very safe impregnated pesticides attached to them so that people can be safe from mosquitoes and malaria and dengue fever and the threat of mosquitoes when they're sleeping. So,
Jay, we've just absolutely run out of time, and thank you for being with us. But these young eyes right here, these 2 young ladies with the apple, this is really a classic photograph. So thank you for being on the Emerald Planet, for sharing with us. This is about CropLife America, CropLife Africa, and also CropLife in Middle East. And thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.